What happens when you lose your gallbladder? Many of my patients come in the clinic complaining of chronic abdominal pain and diarrhea even years after they've had their gallbladders removed. My name is Marcia Roy Madison. I'm a family nurse practitioner. I'm going to explain why you're having those symptoms and what we can do to alleviate some of them. So I've created these sketches in advance to illustrate what's going on with the liver and the gallbladder. So the gallbladder hangs off the liver, and the gallbladder collects a substance called bile. The liver actually makes the bile, but the bile is collected in the gallbladder, which is right here. The bile is an acid, it's an irritant, and so it's designed to break down the fat in the diet. Just like if you were to put oil in a sink, the oil is sitting on top of the water, and then you put some dishwashing liquid in there, and the dishwashing liquid breaks up all of that oil into small particles. That's what bile does to fat in the diet. It breaks up the fat in the diet so it can be absorbed into the bloodstream. So the gallbladder is a reservoir that catches this bile. It catches the bile, and a lot of times if you develop gallstones, that's usually the reason why you have to have the gallbladder removed, because you've developed stones in there from the diet. So now we're going to remove the gallbladder. Okay. And now what is going to happen to this bile, this irritant? It is going to drain down into the stomach, down into the small intestine, down until it gets to the colon. As the bile goes down into the small intestine, it does cause irritation to the small intestine, which is why patients complain about abdominal pain. And then as it moves into the large intestine, it also damages the large intestine. This is not something that happens overnight. Like I said, patients can have had their gallbladders removed years prior to having these symptoms, but it's usually the same symptoms once the gallbladder has been taken out. Let me further illustrate with my sink and faucet. So think of the liver as being the faucet. The liver is putting out this bile, and like we said, bile is going to break down the fat in the diet. So the more fat I eat, the more bile I need. The more fat I eat, the more the faucet is going to turn on. So if I'm eating less fat, I have less bile. If I have more fat, I have more bile. Because the gallbladder is gone, I just drew like a little dotted line of the shadowing. Remember, this was the reservoir to catch the excess bile so that when you're not eating, you don't have this bile just dripping down into the intestine. That's why Mother Nature gave it to you. So it's kind of like the shutoff valve. That's what the gallbladder is, the shutoff valves. It shuts off the faucet so that it's not constantly leaking over here into the small intestine or over here into the sink. So now what happens if you have a leaky faucet in your home? A faucet that is constantly just dripping, 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 day after day, week after week, year after year, you're gonna notice corrosion in the sink. Likewise, the corrosion that you would see in the sink from that leaky faucet is the same corrosion you're gonna see in that small intestine and going into the large intestine. So what can we do to resolve this issue of the bile causing irritation and corrosion in the small and large intestine? We have to get the saturated fat out of the diet. We have to reduce the amount of fat. We have to get away from the animal proteins and eat more plant proteins. So this is pretty much explains where I'm saying the stomach, but it's really the small intestine where this irritation and inflammation from this bile acid is coming from. So we cannot have our gallbladders removed and continue the same diet that caused it to be removed in the first place. We have to get the fats out of the diet. As that bile moves into the large intestine, it's going to damage the walls of the large intestine. And this is where the diarrhea, this is causing inflammation from that acid, is causing the diarrhea symptoms. As the colon is trying to soothe by creating more mucus, just like your nose would create mucus. If you had inflammation in your nose, your eyes will get watery. If something got in your eye, the colon is going to produce more mucus in order to try to soothe that irritation from the bile acid, and it does put you at risk for colon cancer. So the purpose of making this video was really to explain another aspect of how colon cancer is developed. Whether it's, if you watch my video on chronic constipation, that irritation can develop colon cancer. If you've had your gallbladder removed and you've got the chronic irritation from the bile acid, that can also cause colon cancer. So there's a lot of things that will promote colon cancer. A combination of all of these things just makes it worse. If you learned something from the video, please like. If you have family members or friends who may benefit from the videos, please share and subscribe for more of this content.